This is Bluegrass Region Voices and Views. I'm Tom Haley. Helping children with special needs navigate the school system in Lexington in the early 60s was challenging. In this conversation, we'll hear from Bill McCann about how his family found a solution that worked for him. Today, he is a playwright, member of the Dramatists Guild, a poet, flash fiction writer, essayist, and occasional radio host. He's earned multiple college degrees and teaches college classes on writing. Drop in on our conversation after I've asked Bill where he was born and raised.
I was born in Portsmouth, Virginia. My father was in the Army at the time at Fort Lee. And then I was raised in Lexington, Kentucky, and also in Racine, Wisconsin.
What brought you to Kentucky then?
Well, my parents were from Kentucky. They were from this area. Mom grew up over in Richmond Road area, Shenaway Drive part of town. Dad grew up on a farm, about 300 acres, I think, in Clark County. And so this was home for them and for me too.
How old were you when they moved back here?
Oh, I think I was 6 months old.
Oh, okay. Don't quite remember it then.
No, I don't remember it at all.
So what were your early years like?
Well, they were normal until I was about 3.5, almost 4 years old. And something happened. My parents don't know exactly what it was. I developed epilepsy, and they knew that I had fallen, but the seizures didn't happen then. They happened a couple of weeks later. And so they're not sure if it was a fall that I had that caused it or whether the epilepsy, they just don't know. But the result of it was that I really had issues from that point forward. I was having myoclonus seizures. That's what they called it at the time. I think now they would call it Dew's syndrome, and I'm not sure exactly what Dew's syndrome is, except that it's not myoclonic seizures. Myoclonus seizures typically happen at birth or shortly thereafter, and mine happened years after. So I don't know. Anyway, they thought that I would be brain damaged beyond use if they didn't get seizures stopped quickly. So they did get them stopped. They put me on large doses of medication, and they stopped them. And then my parents thought, well, we ought to get a second opinion. So they took me to McGill University. And at McGill, they stayed 6 weeks. I stayed 6 weeks. I was tied down into a bed, and they could see me an hour a day. And the reason was to get all the medication out of my system. And they did that. And then once they did, the seizures never came back. I was still on the medication, had to be weaned off the medication, but I was on medication for about 4 years. But I never had another seizure after that. However, the seizures I did have were such that I was having absence seizures. I was having petit mal seizures and grand mal seizures, often one on top of the other, such that I couldn't even sit up. My mother would have to sit beside me to keep me from falling and hurting myself. So it was really a bad situation, and that lasted for quite a while. And the solution that they came up with was not anything really, except that it was to have me wear a football helmet. So I was the first pro football player as a baby.
And what age were you when you were tied down and all of this going on?
I would have been just a little after the age of 4.
Do you have memories of that?
Oh, no.
No, okay.
No. I think that's one of those memories that if I had it at some point, I've long since forgotten them, got rid of them because they were I'm sure awful.
Mm-hmm. So how did that then affect you when you were starting school at age 6 or so?
Well, I was very active, to say the least, and I was also very demanding. I wanted everything to be in its proper place at all times. I was very OCD and very demanding of my mother that she not be out of my sight. So all of those things created real issues. And they tried to put me in preschool here. There weren't many of them in 1961, but there were a few. And they tried to put me in preschool, and then they tried to put me in kindergarten. And I got kicked out of all 6 kindergartens that were in Lexington at the time. So I was quite a handful. But somehow or other, they found people who believed in me and advocated for me, and they asked over at the University of Kentucky, both in the College of Medicine and in the College of Education, for help in getting me help. So I was given all sorts of testing to see if my mental acuity was and what I could do. And they said, okay, well, we think he can go to school. We think he can succeed. But they needed to find a place to send me because there weren't special education as we know it today. You know, every school, certainly every school district has a special education program. There are special education schools across the country as well, specialized schools just for children who have learning or other disabilities. But that wasn't the case in 1961. They've discovered the Cove schools in Racine, Wisconsin, and in Evanston, Illinois about that time. My parents were made aware of these places. The one in Evanston, Illinois was a day school, and the one in Racine was a residential school. They didn't want to up and move the entire family to Wisconsin or to Illinois, so they sent me. And it was just little old me. The school, I don't know that you can get a hint of it on the cover of my book, Yearnings, but it was an old Gothic school. I think of it as being where Madeline went to school, if you remember those old stories. So they sent me there, and I was there for 4 years.
But you mentioned your book, so let me talk about that just for a moment. That was quite touching, really, looking at the cover of the book. I'm picking it up here. So there's a picture of your mom with her arm on your shoulder, and your dad took the picture, and the stairway going up into the Cove School is behind you. Was that literally your first day there?
I don't know.
You're not sure.
Okay. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
It very well could have been. That was certainly a winter coat that I had on. And I went there for the first time in March. I believe the March 20th or thereabouts.
What year?
1962.
62, right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's very moving picture seeing the look on your face there and your mom, and knowing that she's getting ready to probably not see you for 3 or 4 months, I guess, until maybe Christmas or something.
No, they actually came and visited quite often, several times a semester.
Okay.
Let me read you about
Please do.
That picture.
Yes.
That's on the front cover. It is also the basis of the first poem that's in the book. And it's called A Blurry Future, April 1962. Red always makes Mom stand out. As I stand beside her in my dull but warm coat, I am proud owner of newly earned good papers. Mom's gloved hand keeps me still. Though she smiles, I wear a half-sad smile. A wide limestone handrail leads up to the Cove schools, a prophetic sign nearly too blurry to read. The road home leads through the Cove schools. Dad is taking the picture, making everyone look good as usual, out of the picture, and making things happen. Yet before I can go home, I must go up the steps, open the heavy Gothic door, and go to work. The road home leads through the Cove schools.
And it did for you, didn't it?
It did. It very much did.
And tell us, just jump to the book real quickly here, Yearnings, which was just published this year, I think, in the last couple months.
Right.
So just tell us a bit about the book, why you wrote the book.
Well, I've always been interested in my story, what happened, why I was there, what I did while I was there, and all those sorts of things. I got a master's degree in theater from the University of Kentucky in 2012. And what I had wanted to do was write a play about that experience. And I did, but it wasn't a very good play. Hopefully no one discovers it over at UK. Then I had all these materials. My mother had kept the letters that I wrote home, and there were 55 of them, totaling maybe, 100 pages. And then there were the letters that my parents wrote and that people wrote on my behalf to the Cove School, Dad writing and corresponding about my coming home or getting into the school or any number of topics. The people at UK and other schools in the area, in the Lexington area, wrote letters on my behalf trying to get me into the school. So there are those kinds of materials that were part of this. So I've kept all those. Those were kept for me, and Dad helped me get my educational records from the Cove School, which still exists. It's now in Northbrook, Illinois, but it still exists. You've got the letters home, the letters to my parents, and then there were the educational records. And they total about 40 pages, handwritten or typed, almost all of them typed, on onion skin paper for whatever reason. They were very instructive. So those things together, plus some pictures, the picture on the front of the book is a family picture, have been put together to make a book about my experiences at the Cove School. It all came together because when I turned 65, I knew I wanted to go back to school. The University of Kentucky has the OLLI program. Other schools have them by different names. Eastern Kentucky University has a program too. And so they've got a creative writing program. I went over there first just to take a course or two. No real intention of getting a degree out of it. I had a couple degrees already, plus an undergraduate degree. I didn't really need another graduate degree. But I took a class in literacies. Literacy is learning, of course, how to read and write. And so how people do that, the process they go through, the techniques they use to teach that, the techniques that children and adults learn, pick up language, those were the things that we talked about in that class. And it clicked with me. I can write about my experiences at the Cove School. That was the first clue that I had that I could do that. And in that first class, which was in the graduate school in the English department, but not in the creative writing section of it, I learned how to start pulling things together. And so that worked pretty well. I wrote an annotated bibliography at the suggestion of my professor, and that gave me a broad view over not just the Cove School, but how the Cove School fit into the history of special education, how it fit into the history of education. I learned about how people view literacy and the various ways in which one can become literate. And I thought, I don't want to stay in this program because the route forward out of here is to get a PhD, and that's 10 years, and I hope to be alive in 10 years, but I don't want to be spending it on the same thing for 10 years. So I switched over to the creative writing program. And there I took poetry classes.
This is through OLLI at UK?
No, this is through EKU.
EKU, I'm sorry.
Bluegrass Writers Studio at EKU.
Bluegrass Writers Studio, EKU.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I took courses there. And the first course I wanted to take creative creative nonfiction, because that's what I would be writing, I thought. And there were no vacancies. So I couldn't get in the class. So I took a poetry class. I've never taken a poetry class. I studied a little bit of poetry in high school, a little bit in college, but I never learned the basics of poetry, about rhyme and meter and so forth and so on. So I took a poetry class, and there I came across haibun and haiku. They were discussed in some of the books we were reading, and I thought, this is a really cool way to do this. Haibuns are short pieces of prose. It's a Japanese style. They're typically written either about nature or they're travelogues. Well, mine wasn't really a travelogue, but I didn't know that you're supposed to restrict it to these things, and I didn't know that there were these particular rules about how to do haibun. So I started taking some of the materials that I had and putting them together as haibuns. And then there's haikus, and the haikus always follow the haibuns. And then there were some other things I wanted to say that didn't really fit either of those patterns. So I explored those. And putting all that together, I came up with what is now Yearnings. And let me take just a second here and read one of these for you. March 20th. I think this was the first day I was actually there, or very close to the first day. Dear Mommy and Daddy, Susan and I are playing the little train game. Maybe I'll win this time. Holly is being noisy. She is making a lot of noise. Saturday and Sunday we had fun playing. I played outdoors today. My cold is all gone. When I got there, I had a cold. So this is obviously very, very close to that period. I took a nap at nap time. Sally has a new toy watch. I'm ahead in my game with Susan. Billy J has a model ship that he made. Love and kisses, Billy. And then this was right about the time that early March, late March, somewhere in there, when there's a flower that comes up at that time of year up there, and I always identified it as the first sign of spring. Delicate white bells atop tender green shoots silently ring in spring.
Pretty nice.
So that's an example of one of the haikus. And then another one is, Chicago is huge, big, cold, scary, and so much fun. Is life that way too?
Nice.
So by mixing up the haibun and the haiku, and occasionally throwing in other poems, such as the one I read first about the cover, it started to all come together for the first time. I hadn't had that happen before. I never really felt like I knew what I was talking about when I was writing a play. I grew up writing plays, being in plays at Lexington Children's Theater. I'd been writing them for 25 years, but I never got it right for my MA in theater and dance. But I did get it right for this.
You sure did. Yeah, both my wife and I enjoyed the book very much.
Well, thank you.
Now, like that letter, the first letter that you wrote, were you able to write that yourself, or did you dictate that to a teacher to write to put in the mail?
I dictated those.
Okay.
The first 2 years, I wasn't able to write. Mm-hmm. I was learning, practicing printing and letters and such, but I didn't write until 1964. January of 1964 is when I started writing letters home.
Okay. Yeah, when I read that, I thought that was an awfully cute letter for a 5 or 6 year old to write.
Yeah, those I dictated it.
Yeah.
And there's another one right after that I really like. I'm surprised that I came up with it as a 6-year-old. Let's see if I can find it here quickly. It's about a trip to the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. April 11th, 1962. Dear Mommy and Daddy, we got up early yesterday morning. We boarded a big orange school bus and went to Chicago. We saw ducks, pigs, and a farm. I saw how baby chicks come out of eggs. We saw a lake, a dam, and rain. When it thundered and lightning, it was really loud. I got scared. I saw a lot of strange machines, even a submarine. We went into a coal mine to see how they get coal. Then we saw coal burn. It burns bright and hot, just like wood. At lunch, we all ate in the cafeteria. Mr. Bartlett needed me to help. I got napkins for all the other children, just like a big boy. I had a good time in Chicago. Going back to school, past fields and homes, just like we have in Lexington, I fell asleep. Love and kisses, Bill.
And you were 5 or 6 years old?
I was, let's see, that was April 11th. I turned 7 on May the 8th that year.
May I ask you're how old now? What's your age today?
I'm 70.
70. How does that feel to be 70 and be able to read a letter that you wrote when you were 6 or 7?
I don't know. I mean, the last one I wrote, or one I just read, I think really had real talent in it. Mm-hmm. I don't think I had any other really nice letters like that one in the book. They sound like a typical 6, 7, 8-year-old. Mm-hmm. That one has a bit of musicality, a bit of rhythm to it. It tells a nice story. I really like that. That's my favorite letter in the whole book.
Sure. Wow. Well, you've written 3 books now, and we'll get around to those, but you obviously have a gift for writing. When did you realize that you did?
About the time I was 65.
Okay.
When I went back and started working on pulling all this together. I mean, I was really discouraged. I've written lots of plays, but I was really discouraged that I couldn't pull this off for my MA degree in theater. Mm-hmm. I've won a play contest recently, and I've had others that placed in play contests, and so I've had some success with plays, but that play didn't work at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have quite an impressive list of educational credentials. I wrote down 4 here that I know about. Correct me if I say any of these wrong. Master of Fine Arts degree from Bluegrass Writer Studio at EKU, Master's in Education from the University of Virginia, Master's in Theater from the University of Kentucky, and an AB in History from Transylvania University. Are those correct?
Those are correct, yeah.
You spent a lot of time studying.
I did, and a lot of time teaching, because I've done both. I was a teacher at BCTC. I started out there as a tutor. I spent almost 20 years there, either tutoring or teaching.
Okay.
And now I'm teaching at EKU, teaching not creative writing, composition.
Okay.
And at BCTC, I taught developmental writing. So,
what is that?
That's basically people, adults, generally over the age of 25. They're typically non-traditional students, and they've had difficulty writing in English. Many of them are from foreign countries, and they're learning English as they go. But I've had one student who had 7 languages. English was her 7th language. So, these are not illiterate people struggling to learn English. They are people who came to this country as immigrants and are wanting to become citizens and become actively involved in this country's life. And they know that the way to do that is to, A, master English, and B, get a degree in higher education. And I had one lady who was a doctor in her country, which I believe was Pakistan. So, no dummy there. But she came here, and of course they didn't accept her credentials. So she had to start over. She started out, I think she told me that she was working fast food for a while. And then she got her CNA degree and worked certified nursing assistant. So then she was working in nursing homes, but still a long ways from what she had been doing.
Do you still teach those courses at BCTC, or
No.
you're at EKU?
I'm just at EKU now.
And you also have done some radio work. Tell us about that.
Well, in 2021, I wrote an article about Kentucky playwrights, and I submitted it to the Kentucky Humanities Council, and then they put out a magazine called, I think it's just called Kentucky Humanities. It appeared in that. And then I sent a copy of the article to Tom Martin at Eastern Standard and asked if I could talk about this on his show. And he interviewed me and had a nice interview about that, about Kentucky's playwrights. And then he said, why don't you do an occasional series for us about Kentucky theater productions? So I've been doing that since 2021. Also put together some plays. I wrote a couple myself, the radio plays, and then I've managed to get some other people to write radio plays. And so those have been produced by WEKU also, as called Theater of the Mind. I think there have been 6 of those, but I'm not sure. I've kind of lost track. But they're all available, as are the interviews on WEKU's webpage.
I'll have a link in the show notes to those. Do you do those? Do you tape those at EKU Studio or here in Lexington? Or?
Well, they're through the auspices of WEKU, but Tom lives here and here in Lexington, and the interviews are done in Lexington at a studio here in town.
Okay, good.
On Ashland Avenue.
So what is flash fiction? I know that you've talked in your, I've seen it in your website and so on, the word flash fiction.
Flash fiction is just short stories, very short stories. I think the shortest one I ever wrote was 15 words. The most famous one is only 6.
Can you tell us that?
Yes.
I don't want to test your memory too much here, but
Baby shoes for sale, never worn.
Wow. That now I get what flash fiction is, because that is moving.
Yeah, it tells a powerful story in only 6 words.
Wow.
And I wish I could remember who wrote that. Maybe we ought to look it up real quick, but it's an amazing way to write. And I was inspired to write the stories that are in these two chapbooks, they're based on Bible stories, and basically many of the Bible stories in the Bible, particularly the parables of Jesus, would qualify as flash fiction because they're all very short.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was my next question, was to tell us about your other 2 books, God Hires Gardeners, which was published in 2023, and then another book published here in 2025, The New Adventures of Jesus. So if you would go into some depth about those.
Sure. So God Hires Gardeners is subtitled Modern Works of Flash Fiction Based on Bible Stories. And these are kind of all over the place. There's one in here, Daniel in the Lion's Den, based on Daniel in the Lion's Den, in which a 5th grade, I think he's 5th grade, maybe 3rd, grade boy gets in trouble with his principal. And the principal says, I want you to come out and play on my football team. And he says, well, what's the name of the football team? The Lions. I said, well, I can't do that. My mom won't let me. It's just, I'll talk to your mom. that I might get hurt. He says, well, you're big enough. You're a big, strong boy. Come out and play football. So he does. But it's how he got involved in football, playing in the lion's den, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah. And many of these are not quite so far afield. Find a really short one here. Most of these seem to be around between 500 and 700 words. Most of the books and most of the stories in The New Adventures of Jesus tend to be a little shorter. This is a creation story. The young God stood before the sand and water table. He stood looking at it for a long time, for a 5-year-old. Then, placing his hands back to back in the middle of the table, he pushed them away from each other, revealing the blue plastic beneath the sand. "What is that?" asked the blue-eyed, blonde-haired Karen. "Earth and water," responded Daquan. "That's just sand and blue plastic." "No, it's earth and water, and I created them." "Did not," said the know-it-all. "Did too." "What are you all arguing about?" asked the teacher. "I made earth and water," said Daquan. "Looks like sand and blue plastic to me," said the teacher. "Well, maybe you lack imagination, Miss Morgan. And maybe you're just a smart aleck," said Karen. And then the story continues as Escape from Egypt. "All right, that's enough, you two. Daquan, are you finished here?" "No, ma'am. I was making the Red Sea for my army to be washed away by. Let me show you." He picked up some green toy soldiers from a nearby table and carefully placed them on the blue plastic. Just so. "What happens now?" asked the teacher. "Just pour that pitcher of water over the blue plastic. You'll wash away Pharaoh's army just like God did when the Israelites left Egypt for the Promised Land." "That's cool," said Karen, as Miss Morgan poured the water, which washed the army guys away. "But what about the other plagues?" asked Karen. "You do those, Karen. I only do the cool ones."
So those are your first two books. Yearnings was written after those two. Is that right?
Yes. Well, it's kind of in the middle.
And so they're both obviously, I guess, what you could call the genre faith-based or something to that effect.
Yeah, I suppose.
So tell us about your faith.
Well, I went to seminary briefly for about a year. And I don't know, seminary wasn't my thing. But I've always been interested and involved with my churches, singing in choirs, teaching Sunday school, whatever. So I wrote these particularly the ones in the first book, over a period of about 10 years. And I was enrolled at Bluegrass Writers Studio, and they had someone come in from Finishing Line Press, which is located in Georgetown, Kentucky. And when the lady finished her presentation, she said, "Send us something." So I went home, and about 2 weeks later, I got together 25 or 30 of these, and I sent them off. And I guess about a month later, maybe less, I got we'll publish them back. And so that's how I got published. It was when we did my wife helped me with the proofreading, and she's always been my proofreader. So I sent him off without her proofreading because she was doing something or was gone or whatever. So I sent him off, and I didn't worry about it because I didn't think they're going to get published anyway. And no one was more shocked than I when they said, "Yes, we'll publish them." So we got the galleys back. They were ready for publication, and there were something like 339 errors in it. And she said, "Never again will you send it out anything without me proofreading it." So that's our agreement. And there were, 25 in the totality of of the Jesus book, The New Adventures of Jesus.
Cut them down quite a bit.
Cut them down quite a bit. And some of them were just matters of opinion.
I got to meet her name's Janine, right?
Janine,
yeah,
right.
So I got to meet her and you for the first time a few weeks ago when you were doing a poetry reading at the Kenwick Table. I think they call it Poetry at the Table,
right,
which is on Wednesday nights.
Mm-hmm.
And you were one of the poets there.
Right.
And I came down, just had a great time that evening listening to everybody, especially to you. And
well, thank you.
Getting to sit with Janine and enjoy Kenwick Table, which is quite a cool local treasure here.
It really is.
So what advice would you have for someone, let's be a little bit specific here, somebody in our age group, somebody that's say over 65, maybe retired, and wanting to do some writing, either in a serious way. I mean, I don't know exactly what I mean by that, or it's just they're just playing with it as a hobby. What's a good on-ramp?
I think that the program that the University of Kentucky has, OLLI, where you can take limited courses and basically short story writing, poetry, anything you want. Last time I looked at the catalog, there must have been 100 different courses in there, literally 100. So there's real opportunity there, and they're not free necessarily, but they're relatively inexpensive. And then if you want to get more serious, there are programs, writing programs at both EKU and UK and elsewhere in Kentucky that you can go take the classes for free, tuition free at the universities. So University of Kentucky, you want to get an MFA and study with Frank X. Walker or Crystal Wilkinson or any number of other talented writers, it's free. Now, what's not free at UK is parking and finding a parking place. And so I had Frank as a student when I was working on my theater degree. He's a wonderful teacher. May well be one of the best teachers I've ever had. But it comes with the territory of you got to find a park over there. So that was the primary reason that I went to EKU. I didn't know anything about EKU's program, but I knew it was the same price and cheaper in that it didn't cost me an arm and a leg to, I think it's $500 a semester to park at UK.
What?
Yeah, it's crazy. So I went to Eastern, and I really have no regrets about that at all. I got a very fine education at Eastern, working on my MFA.
I'm feeling stressed right now just thinking about parking.
Yeah, parking that's the big bugaboo for me with UK is parking.
Golly, wow. Well, when you are writing, tell us about your writing practice. Where do you write? When do you write? How do you write?
Well, I first started at BCTC in 2002, that fall. And I was working in the Writing Center, helping students write their essays or whatever it was they were working on. And so someone would come in, and I'd spend 20 minutes with them, and they'd leave, and I'd sit there and write, because what else am I going to do? I can't leave. I got to wait for customers, so to speak. So then the next person would come in maybe 20 minutes after that one, and I'd work with them for 5 minutes and start writing again after they left. And maybe the third person would come in 5 minutes after that. So it was a constant churn of people, and I just had to learn to write in those spare moments between customers, between students. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I began writing. And I find I can pretty much write whenever I want to now because of that. I guess I did that for about 10 years, just in the Writing Center before I started teaching regular classes.
Okay. Well, like this be specific here with Yearnings, your most recent book. Did you write that at home, like you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, or do you like to go to a coffee shop? Or tell us about that. And also, it's kind of strange that I'm interested in this, but I wonder, what program do you use? Do you use Word, or do you use Scrivener, Mac, or PC? Just some
I've got a
specifics.
PC computer, and I use Word. There are specific ones,
Scrivener
that you mentioned, and there are others. But I've never used those. I've always just manually plunked it in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a tech guy. I struggle with the technology even today when I'm teaching at Eastern. But I just write when the moment hits, and in odd moments too. And it's worked for me.
So it's not a specific time of day or something that.
No, because I learned to write. Basically, I was at BCTC 8 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and I might work 3 hours before I get my first break,
Mm-hmm.
and then other instances I may be nothing but on break. Someone comes in 9 o'clock and they're gone by 5 after, and someone else comes in at 9:30, and I've got 20 minutes in between that I write. So that's how I've always done it. My wife complains that she gets writer's block, but that I never do.
Oh, interesting. Why do you think that is?
I don't think it's true. I just change what I'm writing.
Okay.
Change topics, change stories or whatever, plays.
You can always swing back to
and come back to it later.
Oh, very cool. So we're coming up on, it's hard to believe, 2026. What's your big plan for 2026 in the realm of creativity?
I don't really know yet.
Okay.
I've been notified that I've won a play contest, so I will go. Hopefully they won't change their mind, and I'll go pick up that award in November, and then see about getting that published. They're actually going to produce it as part of the contest. They produce the winning play, so it will have been produced, and I will approach publishers about publishing it. Beyond that, I don't know. I've got several books out, books of poetry. I'm working on a book of essays that I'm going to send out starting in November. And we'll just have to kind of wait and see what happens next year.
So when you say that someone is publishing or working with you on this play, who is that? What is that organization?
Well, it's a college. I don't want to.
Oh, okay, sure.
Since I haven't actually gotten all the details from them.
Sure, okay.
And they may change their mind.
That's fine. Sure.
So I'll have to decline that for right now.
No, that's fine. And then I saw that you have, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce this, I don't think, the Grawimner Award in Religion.
Grawemeyer Award in Religion.
Grawemeyer, thank you.
Yeah, I was nominated for that for 2025. I did not win.
Based on your books that you wrote. Okay.
Based on God Hires Gardeners.
Okay. Well, you were nominated. That's a start.
I was nominated. Yeah.
Bill, I have really enjoyed our time together, both today in my podcast studio and at the poetry reading at Kenwick Table. As we're looking for a landing strip here to bring this plane in, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about before we land?
Let me read one of these short flash fiction pieces from the New Adventures of Jesus.
Great.
This is called Jesus, Punks, and Atheist. In a Minneapolis park, on a chilly fall night, Jesus and some believers were seated around a small fire, burning marshmallows and sharing s'mores, when he was approached by a man who introduced himself by saying, "Are you Jesus?" "I am." "Are you God?" "I am." "Are you the Holy Spirit?" "I am." "I don't believe. I am an atheist." But even before the word atheist was fully out of the man's mouth, Jesus was gone. Nothing was left. Only Jesus' stick was on the ground, its marshmallows lying amidst ashes. Took a few moments. It was dark, except in the immediacy of the flames, so for those sitting around the fire to realize that Jesus was gone. He'd simply vanished, disappeared. Jesus? The atheist asked, where are you? Some of the believers, realizing suddenly that Jesus was gone, turned accusingly toward the atheist and asked, what did you do? Who are you to send Jesus away? But before the atheist could answer them, or before the crowd could harm him, Jesus appeared again, where he'd been sitting, the ash-covered marshmallow and stick in his hand. Were you looking for me? Asked Jesus of the atheist. I was. Then are you really an atheist?
Wow. That, very well done. Very well done. Thank you for that. Well, I always close my podcasts with what I call Bluegrass Region Highlights, where I have two questions. The first one is, what is one of your favorite restaurants or coffee shops in this region? And I know you're from Winchester. You're welcome to make it Winchester or wherever in Kentucky.
Shoot. I've got a lot of favorites. You don't carry this paunch without liking food. And I do, but there is a place over in Winchester called Grinders, and it's a coffee shop. It's a drive-through, so I go there quite a bit.
Grinders in Winchester. In Clark County. Great.
Yep.
And then finally, if you had an out-of-town guest visiting and you wanted to show off our local culture, what is a place or activity that you would like to take them to experience?
Well, when I was in college for 4 years, I gave tours of the horse farms.
Did you?
Yeah. And I very much enjoyed that. And over the years, I have occasionally taken guests around to the horse farms.
Wow. If we were heading out right now to do a tour, which horse farm would you probably go to first?
Well, I'd kind of take a circuit.
Okay.
And the only one that I think people really want to go to is Claiborne Farm over in Paris. But they're not open all the time. And it can be, or used to be, hard to get into. So I'm not sure if that's a possibility, but I would take them there if I could get them in.
Great. So going to grab me a coffee at Grinders and then come back over to Claiborne Farm. So, Bill, it's been a pleasure getting to know you, and I hope that we can increase our friendship over the years.
Well, thank you, Tom. I look forward to that.
Appreciate you. Thank you. It's been my pleasure to get to know Bill McCann. He's inspired me to try some writing, hang around with a writer and teacher of writing, and you just might try it yourself. His books are available on Amazon, and he recently launched a Substack blog. Links to what we discussed are in the show notes on my website at bluegrassregionvoicesandviews.com/yearnings. Thanks for listening. Now, let's go write something.